Hi, this is Cheryl St.Pierre of Majestic Wire Artworks. This video is dedicated to my craft along group, and in it we are going to make this necklace bar. It's a T necklace bar. It has two parts to it. It's got the regular necklace bar as well as a head pin that together it makes a T. And I'm just demonstrating it here, showing how it is perfect for showing off a special Lampwork bead. It could be a grouping of beads, it could be a single bead, it could be a larger bead, it could be a smaller bead, or you could just leave off the head pin altogether and just make a very special dangle for it because it's very pretty on its own as well. So in this video we will also be making the infinity links with I'm not going to use work hardened wire in this demonstration, but in other demonstrations I have shown you how to do it with work hardened wire. Anyways, so let's begin. What you're going to need for supplies is two gauges of wire. In the center we have 18 gauge wire. For the bar you're going to need a 10-inch length, and in the center of the head pin we're using 18 gauge wire again, and you're going to need a 6-inch length, and it's going to give a little bit more thickness and sturdiness for a Lampwork bead. So if you are doing a different type of bead and need a smaller wire, go ahead and change it up and use a 20 gauge in there. If it's pearls you're using, you're going to need a smaller piece of wire, and you'll just have to play it by ear with what you need. So what you're going to need then for the finger swirls is we're going to need two 20-inch pieces of 20 gauge wire, and for the head pin I've used 10 inches. Just for the ease of use we're going to need 10 inches. It doesn't really use 10 inches, but you just need it, and you will see why once you get started. Okay, so I think, oh right, for the bar you need 10 6x4 rondelle beads. You could replace it with something else if you like. I would do 4mm or a 6mm bead in there. If you're going to put the 6mm bead, it's going to be a little bit wider, but that won't matter. It'll work with the wire we have. You'll have enough wire to do it. And for the head pin, I've used 3. Now, 2 for the head pin itself, and then I just put 1 there, and that's up to you. So you choose what beads you're going to use, and I think we're ready to begin. Okay, so we're going to start with making the main bar part of the necklace bar. And so you're going to take your 10-inch piece of 18 gauge wire, and you're going to take a ruler, because we can't bend it we don't want to bend it to find the center, but we do need to find the center. So you're going to take a ruler and you're going to measure out 5 inches. And this can't be 10-inch. Oh, sorry, it's not a 10-inch piece. What am I thinking? It's an 8-inch piece. So we want 4 inches. I'm not sure where I got that 10 inches from. Probably from the 20 gauge wire for the head pin. Okay, so I'm just going to bend it at 4 inches, and that is going to show me where we need to make our loop. That's this loop right here, right there. So we're going to do that. Now, the loops, we don't want to make too big. We want it to look fairly small. So I'm just going a little bit larger than what I would for an earring loop. So I'm going to bend it up like this and then just cross it over so that it makes a V like that. And that's all we're doing with this for now. So then the next thing you need to do is have your beads ready and get out your two 20 gauge 20-inch wires, Okay, so I'm putting this aside, but keeping it close. And we're blurry here. Okay, and so I've got my two pieces of 20 gauge wire, and I'm lining up the ends so that it's the same. And we're wanting to find the center, and we're going to do it by folding it in half virtually. So I'm putting the ends all together and then pulling it with my finger like this, because that pull is going to start making this loop right here, and that's how we're going to begin, is by making that loop and then the two little finger swirls right there that it's going to be above the beads. Okay, so we've got that loop, and I'm just going to make it a little bit tighter, and then we're going to hold them together. And this is the tricky part. We're trying to keep them together, and I'm doing a finger swirl like that, and then I want to do a finger swirl on the other side. Now, if you kind of move so that's not going to look centered, don't worry about it. We can fix it. So these are longer wires, so I'm fighting with the camera. But I'm going to do another finger swirl on the other side. Okay, and mine actually stayed pretty center, but if yours is looking wonky, then just put something in there and just bend it the way you need to bend it so it looks centered. You can do that adjustment. Now, these two swirls are going to lock the two wires together. So now you won't have to fight with them coming apart. So that's a bonus there. And now these, and this can get tricky, so have patience as you do it. These are going to go on and get wrapped around here. So we actually need to bend this a little bit more so that it's perpendicular to that wire as well as this wire. And see how the loops went together automatically? That's okay. Okay, now we want to put a bead there and a bead there, and we will just start with putting one bead on, and then we got to wrap this around the wire, locking the bead in place. Now, bear with me because it might fight me. This is probably the hardest part of making the whole pendant bar, is getting that first loop on. Okay, so I've got a bead on there, and I'm going to hold this in place where I want it. Centered is where you want it, and we can adjust it later. We probably will need to do a little bit of adjusting. I'm going to bend this in a little bit more and holding it, supporting it, holding it, locking it in place with my fingers, and I'm going to wrap it around one time so that it comes to the downwards. And now I want to take a pair of pliers and cinch that up so it's nice and small and tight, so that it keeps your piece neat looking. Okay, so now I'm going to put, and I've bent this, that's okay, we can fix that as we go. I'm going to grab another bead, put it on the other side, and we will do the matching. This is, like I said, this is going to be tricky. And I've got it upside down because I'm right-handed, very right-handed. Want it to be centered, hold it in place, making adjustments to, and holding it where I want it to be. Like I said, this is the trickiest part. Okay, now I'm going to cinch that up. There. Okay, so there it is. It's staying put, and that's what we want. Okay, now I'm going to work on just this side. This part just locked everything into place, and we can go from there. So now it's going to be pretty easy, I say. So I'm going to put 2 beads on. And now we're going to do a finger swirl, and we're going to try and make it in the center there. If it ends up this side, on the other one we'll try and make it the opposite. But we're going to try and aim for being in the center, because it's just going to be that much easier to keep consistent. Okay, so gotta hold those beads on because they can fly off. Do a finger swirl, which can be pretty awkward to get on camera. Okay, so it's not quite centered, but it's not bad. And now I'm going to wrap around this, and now we're going to be working on the upper part. So it's always going to be opposite. Okay, keep everything level. 2 more beads on this side. See, we've got lots of length here. This is all the beads we're going to have on this side. So if you had larger beads, it's okay. We've got the room to work with. I just wanted to give you plenty of room to work with. And not only that, if it was short, the beads would fall off so easy. So now I'm going to do that finger swirl. And my beads fell off anyways. Put them back on. And that's really high up there, and that's okay. We'll just have to try and make them the opposite. Okay. So now I'm going to go back down this way. You notice I just wrapped that down, and now I'm changing direction. Okay. So you want to do it so it's going to complement that side. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger on this side. So I pushed it up. And now I'm going to wrap and try and be as neat as possible around the center there. And come back, because it gets pretty thick. So you want to try and make it neat. Okay. Now this is smaller. And we're going to make this one smaller too. So you're always bearing in mind what's on the opposite side. And then when you do the other side, you got to keep that in mind too, because you want to try and make it similar. Okay. So we are going to finish it off here. So we want to try and make it not too bulky, but we got to go completely around, which has the potential to be very bulky looking. So work as tight as possible. So we went totally around, and now at the back, we're going to snip it here. We're going to make loops at the ends and just curl it under, just so it doesn't poke anybody. So I'm going to cut it off about 1 centimeter. Maybe a little bit longer than 1 centimeter. You've got to make sure you don't cut off any other wires, just the 2 wires you wanted. And then take either your round nose pliers or your chain nose pliers. I like using my chain nose because it grips it better. That's your personal preference. Okay, so I made a loop. So it's touching itself. I don't know, there you can see it there. Okay, no sharp pokies. And the other one as well. My natural instinct is to pull it towards me when I do this, and that's when I get out of camera. I'm trying hard to improve my techniques for you. Okay, now I'm just pushing it up. You don't really want to see it from the other side, but you do. And you know what? Because they're so cute and they're in a row, that looks okay. So you can choose to leave it there. I'm going to leave it there. Or I could bend it up behind the beads, because then you wouldn't see them. Okay. So now we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side of the bar. Okay, so I got to put my 2 beads on. 1, 2. Now I'm going to make this one nice and tiny like this one. And I'm just going to pause to get a drink for a second. I probably don't need to tell you when I take a pause break, but I just feel rude if I don't. So, nice tiny little swirl. Yeah, that one's good. Okay. And then nice and tight wrap there. That's pretty good. Okay. Might take practice to get your technique down, but it's worth it. Okay, so with the next one, I did smaller and then bigger. That's, yeah, pretty sure that's how I did it. But I'm doing the top smaller than bigger. Yes, smaller than bigger. Not by much, though. Okay. Then a neat little wrap at the end. And I just want to point out, I'm always holding this swirl with my thumb, supporting it. Because if you don't, it's going to it's going to bend upwards or go wonky on you somehow anyways. Okay. Nice tight little wrap. Okay, and then a little finger swirl between the 2 beads, and then I want it a little bit bigger in the second part of it, and then wrap around tightly, and we're almost done this part anyways. A little tiny wrap. Completely around and to the back. Snip it off. So this will be the deciding factor whether I leave the loops up or not, because I need to make it kind of matching with these ones. And if I can't get it to match or look right, I'll hide them. I'm going to actually do this one first. One and two. Now, okay, I can't get it to match. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move them behind the bead like that and like that. See, still no rough edge, and you don't see it from the front. And so I will do the same with the other side. Whoops, needs to go this way. Got my directions mixed up. Okay, so it's behind the bead. And you see how it moved on me? Now I'm just going to slide it over, squish it in. And then the next step is you need to take your ruler and you need to measure from the center to the end and make sure both are equal. So it is 1 3/8 inches on that side, and yours might be different. Depends how tight you work. And this one is 1 1/2. So I notice again that it's not centered. I'm centering it. Gotta make sure it's centered. I don't know if I've ever had that happen before. So once you get it in place, you can lock it in place. So don't worry about that shifting on you once it's done. Okay. So again, measure again because I moved it. So it's just a smidge under 1 1/2 inches. And here's 1 1/2. Okay, so I need to stretch. Keeping this centered, so I'm holding this, supporting it, and I'm going to try and stretch this piece out a tiny bit because we want them to be the same width. And it didn't take much, I don't think. Measure it again. Oh, now I've got it at 1 1/2 inches. So I'm going to now stretch this side out a little bit. Didn't take much. I felt it move right away. Yes, I'm at 1 1/2 inches. Okay, so we want it to stay put. And we're going to make a loop here. So I am just going to hold this and I'm going to push this like this. And we're going to make a loop, an open loop. It's not a closed loop. So I've got that bent. And we want to make it the same size as loop matching this one. So you need to remember where you were at. And just make your loop like that. And then snip it right there. So we have plenty of room for working if you need for larger beads. But it gives you a handle to bend the wire because it's thicker wire. If it's too short, it's almost impossible to do this. You need the length to work with that thickness of wire. At least I do. I don't have the finger strength that some people do. And snip that in. And then now I'm taking my round nose pliers and closing off that circle. Now, if you have chain that can go around this, you won't need to make the infinity link. But you might not have the luxury of having that. And there, that's very petite. You know, sometimes they end up being bigger and sometimes they end up being smaller. This one's 2 3/4 inches wide. So it's nice and dainty. And, you know, so you wouldn't, I made my swirls really tiny on this one. My other one's quite a bit bigger. So each one's going to be a little bit different. See the difference in size? And they both have the same size of beads. So it's got nothing to do with the beads. It's how tight you work. And so, you know, it depends on how you work. Okay, so that's done. And now I'm going to take some scrap wire to make my infinity links. Take your scrap wire and make a loop like that, and then take your pliers at the same size and start making this other loop. And at this point I want you to push this, because it will bend and it'll tighten it up and neaten up. Try again. It's a little bit blurry there. And wrap it around and then snip it. So the new camera setup that my husband helped me with seems to be, I'm getting the hang of it, and it's much easier for me to stay in camera. And that's good, because I was having such a hard time. I want my videos to be good quality. Okay. And I ask for your forgiveness for putting out some pretty uncentered videos. So now I'm just going to wiggle this in so it touches the other wire. And because of that, they're not exactly matching in size, but that's okay. And now I'm going to work hard on it by snapping down on it. Pinched myself. Snapping down on it. And that work hardens it quite a bit. More than you realize. Because it's a tiny circle, you can get away with this. And now it's pretty firm. It's doing its job. Okay, and then go ahead and make another one. And I won't do it on camera. Okay, so I've gone ahead and put one link on there. And I'm just going to show you how I put the links on. So you just wiggle this back and forth until it's right. And then you level out the center of your infinity link. Otherwise it can scratch the person that's wearing it, and you don't want that. So you always check for that. Okay, so that piece is done. And now we'll go ahead and make the head pin. And you know, I'm going to turn this into a 2-part video because I don't want it cutting out on me in the middle of this. So I'm going to say move on to part B. The link will be in the description, and just go from there. And I'll be right back in the next video. Bye for now.